Hello, everybody. It is 10:25 a.m. Central Time on the 14th of August, 2021. Hope you're doing well. Guys, it's Saturday here in the United States. I've got some breaking news. I'm going to turn on a display capture. We still have the view from last night's party going on. Now, first of all, if I sound like I just woke up, I did. Just woke up about 10-15 minutes ago. Up till 6 a.m. Central Time. Doesn't matter about me, guys. 7.2 earthquake has struck over here in the west side of Haiti. Now, this is on land. There's no tsunami warning. That's the only good news I have for you on this quake. The bad news, Haiti. Now, we're about 80 miles west of where the Port-au-Prince disaster happened several years ago, when Port-au-Prince was just devastated. And they're still recovering from that earthquake. There's still blue tent cities here when they had these blue tarps that were distributed to everybody down there after the last quake, like 10 years ago. So here we are. We're out in the peninsula. We're right in the middle on the actual mountain range. There, I would venture a guess. We don't have any marked faults here, but when we got something shaped like this, that goes on for that long in a single direction, east and west, following the plate boundary, I would say most likely that's tied to a fault. Now, here's the quake, 7.2, western side of Haiti. Now, make note of the red lines. These are the plate boundaries that connect between plates. I had issued a warning for this week to be on watch right here for a 7.1 to 7.2 quake. South Mexico, where it meets into Guatemala. Now you see the red line, that's the plate boundary, and it goes right over to where we had our other warning going this past week, which on the east side of Puerto Rico, this past week we had warned for 6.0 range activity. So over here and over here. And the exact middle point between the two, if you go around the bend, has been struck. Now I want to take you back to just a few days ago, for when I issued the warning for Mexico. Why did I issue a warning for Mexico? Well, we have to go all the way over here to the opposite side of the Pacific. Over to here. Over to the Philippines going into Indonesia and go back one day. Boom. 7.1 to 7.2 earthquake struck there. So when this struck, I told everybody we have to watch parallel along the same latitude on the opposite side of the plate for compensation movement, which led me to issue the warning for South Mexico, where the plate boundary goes over to the Caribbean. Then subsequent warning, again, East Caribbean as well. So that's the quake we're looking for. Something else happened this morning. This isn't the only quake. A new 7, 6.9 USGS, new 7 struck right up here in Alaska. So a 7 in Alaska struck first. Then a 7.2 struck here. This is this morning. 2 7s, 2 different 7s, thousands of miles apart, Alaska and the Caribbean. Now, of course, you can see we still are dealing with the earthquakes down here, down at the South Pole, at the South Sandwich Islands. 8.1, they added that in. First it started with a 7.5, then 3 minutes later, an 8.1 hit. 7.5 down at 68 kilometers deep, or 63 kilometers deep. Then up at 48, so coming up like a stair step from the 7.5, then the 8.1 hit. It was a 3-minute long event. It's the biggest earthquake in years. Wait, is it? Because we go back just to a week ago, and we have our other 8 that struck up in Alaska. We're dealing with 2 8s in the last 2 weeks, plus a bunch of 7s. And I'm going to show you the 30-day feed. We don't normally look at the USGS 30-day feed at all when I do my updates. You just need to see this so you can see the antipode. The opposite side of the planet has been hit back and forth. Here, up in Alaska first. Let's get that on the feed here. There we go. Again, we're looking at 6.5 plus earthquakes for the last 30 days. So first this hit, 8.2, and an antipode quake, opposite side of the planet, took place within a few days' time. Down here, same size, 8.1 to 8.2. Now, wouldn't you say that this new 7.2 is the halfway point between the previous 8.2s? if we go across the curvature of the whole Earth and just do that we're at a halfway point, a fulcrum point as we would call this, between the eights. And that's why I warn Mexico as well, but it's the halfway point of the plate on both sides. So I want you to take a look at it like this. In the last 2 weeks, this is what we're dealing with, not counting the sixes. It's unprecedented. And I'm going to take another screenshot of this. Again, I need to have these documented because it's not like this happens all the time. Maybe once every few years, maybe every 5 years, maybe even more. Once every 8 years or 10 years, you might see something like this happen, where it's just back to back to back to back, and the biggest quakes that we've seen on the whole planet. The only thing missing is a 9, quite frankly. But we don't want to see that. I'm not issuing a forecast for that now. I'm just telling you, when you get something like this in a short period of time, that's a lot of movement around the Pacific, and there will be adjustments that spread out from there. Now let's take a look at the adjustments. Do you see? We went over to the perimeter, all the way over to the west of Indonesia, and we went over to the perimeter all the way to the east, over along South America, with the same size quakes. 6.2 and 5.8 on one side, 6.2 and 5.8 on the other. And again, I'm showing you everything 5.8 and greater over the last 30 days. Here's 5.0 and greater. So that's really fills it in, so it kind of becomes hard to see. But taking it back, Haiti's been just likely devastated. I could jump over to Twitter, log in, pull up the video. We're not here to do that. We're not here for the news aspect on it. Oh, how much damage was done, blah, 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 blah. We're here to talk about the seismic on it. If you want the damage and the news and all the drama pictures and people crying and dust in the streets, you can go look it up yourself, or you can go over to any news channel on YouTube and they'll bring you the news on the quake. I'm here to tell you about the seismic on it. It is the halfway point between the previous eights. The eights are bouncing back and forth through the planet. Antipode quakes. We're dealing with 4 different 7.0 plus quakes in the last couple weeks, and certainly 2 in the last 2 days. 3 if you count the 8 that they added into the feed down at the South Pole. We might be dealing with this normally once every few weeks, if not months, when we're dealing with a 7. My viewers know this, that we go months sometimes without any 7.0 range activity at all. And then to get it in a flurry like this, where this morning we get a 7 up in Alaska again, then we get a 7 here at Haiti, following the 8 and 7 down here last night over in the southeast Pacific. That's the whole Pacific shifting on the eastern side in a day. Maybe 2 days if you want to count in the first 7.5 down at the South Sandwich Islands at the South Pole. But you can see it. Again, from Alaska to Haiti, all the way down to the South Pole, back to the USGS map, from up here to down here to down here. So basically, boom, boom, boom. 3 perimeters of the far eastern perimeter of the Pacific, even though that's not the Pacific plates. We're 1 plate over. We go 1 plate over to the Caribbean to get struck, and we go 1 plate over to the edge of the Antarctic tip to get struck on the eastern side, here and here. North side still moving, and west side moved a day ago. So both wings of the Pacific, both perimeters of the Pacific, and we're not done yet. There's no way we're done yet. The United States certainly needs to be on watch now. There's times where I would say we might need to be on watch. There's times where I kind of downplay it and don't really beat the drum too hard on the west coast of the United States and Mexico. There's other times where I've been way wrong and there's not been very much to base it on. Then there's other times I've been spot on. So, we are going to warn the West Coast right now to be on watch for the next 7 days at the halfway points between these quakes. So how do we find a halfway point between the 6.9 and 7 up in Alaska and the 7 down in the Caribbean next to Haiti? Well, let's go over this way. We go up, around, down, and over. Wouldn't you say that's about the same distance from the plate boundary over to the east as the distance up to the northwest? Isn't that kind of weird? Anyway, the halfway point, if we go between the two, puts us in Southern California, guys. It puts us into central Southern California, Ridgecrest down to Simi Valley, Here, let's zoom in. It puts us from Ridgecrest to Long Valley, over as far west as Monterey Bay, and as far south as Simi Valley. Puts us right in here. Okay, I mean, it's undeniable. Let's just back it out again. If we go the halfway point, if we go up and around, down, back over and around, just take this line and find the halfway point between here and here. You don't just go straight line across. You don't bird line of sight it. So we go, again, following the plates. And it's pretty obvious. Southern California now needs to be on watch for the potential of an extremely large quake. Extremely large. Like, about what we're dealing with now, basically. Between the 7s, look, it could go into the 6 range. It could go drop just a little and be down in the 6. Don't fault me if it does that. But I'm thinking it's going to be about the same size. It's going to be in that upper 6 to low 7 range. We're not done compensating. Same for South America. The halfway point between the earthquake in the Caribbean and the 8 down south. That's along the coast of the western coast of South America. Let's go find the halfway point there. Wait a second. Wouldn't you say it's about the same distance as it is from Alaska down to the Caribbean, as it is from the Caribbean down to the South Sandwich? Maybe just a little bit bigger because of this stretch over to the east. But so we go around, down, around and over, and we find the halfway point between these two that way. That would put it somewhere in North Chile. So we're going to have to warn North Chile as well, right here. Halfway point going down and around the bends of the plate for a new upper 6 to near 7 as well. So United States, watch out, and Chile, watch out. Now my Mexican viewers, geez. Now look guys, I got to measure and see how far off I am on this Mexico warning. Because again, when I warn South Mexico for a 7.1 to 7.2 quake to strike right here, and it strikes right here, I have to know how far off I am. Because that's going to dictate how far off I'm going to be down the trajectory, down line. Okay? So let's measure. Okay, we're going to measure in miles. And we're just going to do a rough measurement from the earthquake epicenter in Haiti all the way over to my warned area in Mexico following this plate boundary right here. Again, it's a pretty straight line there. It's almost an exactly straight line, actually, right into here. 1,300 miles. I'm trying to get it down to 200 miles, so I would call that a flop on the location-wise, but it's the same region. I mean, I'm down to the region. I'm just trying to get it even further. I'm a one-man operation doing something everybody said was impossible. So again, if I'm trying to get it here and it strikes here, that's the quake we're looking for, especially when it's the exact magnitude. We're looking for a 7.1 to 7.2 to come into South Mexico. And I was basing that on the earthquake that struck directly across over here 2 days ago. If you're just now tuning in, Haiti has been struck by a devastating earthquake. I'm not going to be showing video of that. First of all, I don't want to get in trouble. Don't want to step on anybody's copyright. People copyright that stuff. But also, disaster video can get my channel shut down on YouTube just for the shocking factor if there's people that are covered in dust or people that are bloody or injured. Now, there's likely people injured. With an earthquake like this, the magnitude, 7.2. The depth, I don't know. They have it auto-calculated at 10 kilometers deep, and they reviewed the earthquake but have not refined the depth. Hopefully, they will come in here and do a calculation or use I don't know how they do it, really, quite frankly. There's different ways to do it. But calculate the depth on this so that we don't just have the 10 km auto-signed from the computer. Right? We know it's not 10 km. It's likely something less than 10 km, in my opinion, but you never know. It could be deeper, too. And what does it matter if it's deep or shallow? Well, the more shallow it is, the shallower it is, the more damage we can get. The closer to the surface, obviously. If you get a big break at the surface, we get big shifting that goes around the whole area. If it happens deep, people still feel it, but it's more of a widespread vibration the deeper it goes. Now, getting back to it, multiple 7s in a day. Now we're getting it down to a day. I mean, a day ago, I was talking about it being, well, just over 24 hours we're apart. We got these 7s that are going on. Now we're dealing with less than 24 hours, 3 hours apart, up in Alaska, down in the Caribbean. 3 hours from the point where a 7 happens up in Alaska and a 7 happens down in the Caribbean. And just within 24 hours of our biggest movement that we've seen in the southern hemisphere in years, down here. And that follows within a week of the biggest movement we've seen on the planet in years, which was an 8.1 to 8.2 quake up here in Alaska. And that, too, came on the heels of major movement. Now, I haven't even touched on what's going on internationally. We've got ourselves a bunch of new deep earthquakes, which that's the cause of this whole hot mess that we're in right now, the deep earthquakes. What I think's going on is down below the plates, there's concentric waves. You see this video here in the laboratory, but this is a concentric wave pool. The combined force of the whole wave focusing in on itself and then hammering into the underside of something. Since the fluid can't compress, the full force of the wave gets shot up into a singularity. Now, I'm pretty sure, I think, this is happening VLF, very low frequency, down below the plates. So it hammers in with a new deep quake coming up out of the core, which is vibrating like a bass drum because it's plasma energy, not a solid ball of metal. Plasma reflects like a solid, by the way. So when they're reflecting shock waves off the core of the Earth, seismic waves are reflecting off the core of the Earth. Scientists thought that meant that the core of the Earth is solid. They didn't know that physical shock waves are reflected by physical plasma. Boeing has since patented that and now are making shockwave reflection deflection devices for Humvees, tanks, and buildings, using basically electrical arcs like lightning, but plasma in the air. Okay, we're dealing with major earthquake activity. I've got a warning that I've now issued for Southern California to be on watch for up to 7.0. Is Mexico still going to get hit? While I don't think so, but that's famous last words, knock on wood. We are 2 days in on a 7-day watch for Mexico, and the earthquake strikes just to the east. Will it strike Mexico? We're within 1,300 miles. I'm going to keep the watch going for 5 more days. No bueno, guys. This is so close. And it's going to go over to the east. The energy on this should go over to the east, but it's so big that the inundating wave that we're talking about here, let me show you in the wave tank. First, the hammering action takes place. Then the wave spreads out. And a standing wave. So it starts with like a single deep earthquake, creating a shock wave that spreads out across, or a VLF wave, that spreads out across a huge area in the shock. Then you pump more deep earthquakes in. And the amplitude starts to increase. The wave height, the power, the magnitude. And they're all about the same size, aren't they? Right? Each wave in the standing wave tank. Now imagine this is 7.2, 7.2, 7.2, 7.2. Or in the middle, 8.1, and then 7.2, 7.2. Think of this as the 8.1 in the middle up in Alaska 2 weeks ago. And then spreading out on both sides of the Pacific, 7.1, 7.1. Philippines, and over at Haiti just now. And that it's an equal spread, but the spread is a planetary one. And again, if this is the middle where we're spreading out and across and up, it struck up here. The 8.1 struck up in Alaska, followed by 7.1 to 7.2 over here on this wing, and followed by 7.1 to 7.2 over here on this wing, and then followed also by 7.5, 8.1 down here on the opposite side of the planet. The antipode of the North Pacific is down here at the Southeast Pacific, right here to here. Antipode meaning opposite side of the planet, guys. So we're dealing with major earthquake activity. No tsunami warning on this. That's good news. But I had to check. This is the third or fourth time I've had to check the the Tsunami Advisory Center since we started this mess 2 weeks ago. It's unprecedented. Now I've got other news for you. Are you ready? Did you hear about the 57,000 foot high blast, or was it 54? 54,000 foot high blast happened here last night out of the ocean from an undersea volcano. It went up 54,000 feet into the atmosphere from an undersea volcano. Did you hear about this? This happened again last night. So let me go show you one more time here. Hold on. Let me go show you the Volcanic Ash Advisory Center because this matters. There it is, top on the list. Fukutoku Okanoba. And it was just a huge blast, guys. Now, they've passed the coverage over to the VAAC, but we're just going to go down the list and read the others to you because Nishinoshima is also on the list right next to it. Seismopochnoi, up in the Aleutian Islands, never on the list. Fuego in Guatemala, no duh, we've got the big earthquake over at Haiti right next to it. Shirinkoten volcano over in the Kuril Islands, continually going now. And we can keep going down the list, but come on. So we have low-level volcanic eruptions at Seismopochnoi, but let's go look at this one. Here it is. Oh, wait, they're still passing the advisories over. There we go. 56,000 feet. 560. Did I say 54? Flight level 560, undersea eruption that came up above sea and blew up into the stratosphere. That was last night, right here. So, that volcano, and then the one to the north is Nishinoshima. That's two, right there. Going side by side, and they're right at the halfway points between our current sets of quakes. So what more do we need? A stratospheric high blast, a 7.0 earthquake next to it. We got an 8 and a bunch of 7s up here at Alaska, and a new eruption next to it at Pavlov Volcano this week. Seismopochnoi is right here, halfway between the two. Same with Karimsky and Shevelush, right here and here. Shirinkoten is also right here in the Kuril Islands. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 volcanoes erupting across the North Pacific. In between are sets of 7s and 8s. Dude, it is... Look, there's times where I have to report on things and not be over the top about it. There's other times where it's appropriate for me to be like, dude, we're dealing with it. Dude, you guys need to be prepared. Dude, West Coast of the United States needs to be on watch. Anybody who says these are not related, you need to not only not listen to them, you should scorn them publicly. Anyone, any professional, if it will first be nice, okay? Don't just immediately go nuclear on them, okay? They might be ignorant or not know. But if you see a news story or something like some mainstream news, you rip them a new one. You even make a new post about it and say, look at these idiots. They've already tried to do this 20 times. It's dangerous to deny the relation between something when there's a relation. And we've seen it for now 10 years I've been documenting this. And I tried to show the professionals this the last time it happened. And they mocked and ridiculed me when it went back and forth 4 times. It went from Kyushu with a 7.5 that split Kyushu in half. This is several years ago. Kyushu gets struck with a 7.5. The next day, a 7 point whatever struck down here at Ecuador. Killed hundreds of people. So they were back to back. Major damage in Japan, nobody dead, but lots of people injured. Then the next day, Ecuador hit by a 7. Back and back to forth, right? 2 sides of the Pacific, just like a tennis match. I make a video, show everybody, and a professor who ran the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network shows up. And this guy's the biggest jerk in the world, at least to me. And he comes over and tries to stop my stories by denying a relation between the earthquakes. There is no relation between the earthquakes on both sides of the Pacific. Anybody saying it online? This is the professor. Anybody saying it online is mistaken. Blah, 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 blah. After they put out that story, the next day, it happened again. A 7-point earthquake struck right here in the Solomon Islands, followed by a 6.9 or whatever, somewhere close to it, right, upper 6, low 7, striking off the coast of Mexico. And it was 4, back to back. So Japan, Ecuador, Solomon Islands, Mexico. And then the professor shut up about trying to say there's no relation between the quakes. So we're back to it. There is a relation between the quakes, the big quakes, and it's a spread of a standing wave. That's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the spread of a standing wave, but it's a huge wave. The wave is just massive. It's thousands of miles long, thousands of miles tall, and can pop off 6, 7, and 8.0 range quakes in amplitude, magnitude. Where's it coming from? Well, again, it comes from the core of the Earth. The core of the Earth vibrating like a bass drum. Think of a round speaker. Think of a 3-dimensional spherical speaker. I don't know if they make them, but think of a subwoofer if you could make it completely round. Hey, that's a good idea, actually. Hold on a second. That's a really good idea. Somebody want to make $1 billion? New subwoofers that are completely round like a globe. And they vibrate out in all directions. Anyway, that's what the core of the Earth is. And when it vibrates, it puts that wave up and out. And it's a very long wave, thousands of miles long. And it's coming up, vertical, hammering into the underside of the plate. Then, when it hammers into the underside of the plate, it spreads up, out, and away like a lightning bolt going across the sky, or a tree spreading its branches up and out. It spreads out and away following the cracks in the plate boundary. And that's how we get the equal-sized wave spreading to the West Pacific, dropping off a 7.1 to 7.2 quake, and spreading to the East Pacific and beyond, right along the plate boundary over to Haiti, dropping off a 7.1 to 7.2 quake there. It's the halfway point, the 7.1 to 7.2 in Haiti, halfway point between this morning's 7 up in Alaska. So we're dealing with 2 sevens. Alaska, not really getting much attention. Haiti, going to get a lot of attention. Going to get a lot of attention. The media is going to cover it just because of the freak factor based on the last quake down there. If they can, the media, they will ignore quakes. Like they barely even covered the 8.0 earthquake and tsunami down here at the South Sandwich Islands because, well, nobody lives there. But when you can make a buck on it, the media will come in and start covering it. So that's the difference between the 7 point whatever yesterday down at the South Sandwich Islands and the 7 point whatever today in Haiti. And that's why the media is covering one and not the other, because they can make a buck on it. Not that they have any viewers down there. Now let's get back to it. Final little point on this. We're not done. We are not done. I'm going to have to get a new forecast out. I've already got a forecast out calling for major unrest, a huge increase. I said we're going to take the next step up from where we were. Everywhere where there are 6s, there's going to be 7s. Everywhere there are 7s, there's going to be 8s. Everywhere there are 8s, there could be 9s. And that gets me into the potential of 9.0 range quakes up in Alaska going to the coast of the United States or as far west as Russia, up here to the north. That we're still trapped there with energy. And if we're taking the next step up across the board, and this is going to go back through the planet and come back out on the antipode, then we have to warn Kamchatka, Russia, over to Alaska right now for a larger quake than 8. It would be the first ever large earthquake warning like that I've ever had to issue. So I've got to get this down. I've got to get the forecast out right. That's what I'm thinking right now. I mean, if it happens between now and when the forecast comes out, you've got it documented here, but I'm just going to have to get it into an official watch, nail down the areas. Not going to do that now in this update. If you're just now tuning in, Haiti's been hit by the largest earthquake in decades, or in a decade, and it's on land. So there's no tsunami, but while there's no tsunami, likely major damage across the peninsula out in Haiti, and probably felt all the way over to Puerto Rico, and probably felt all the way over to Jamaica and Cuba. Maybe even South Florida could get in on the mix of feeling this quake. Now, I'd like to go over and click on it and just find out more info from the USGS. Oh, wow, hold on. Dude, look at the name of this place. 12 kilometers northeast of St. Louis, Haiti. St. Louis du Sud, Haiti. Du Sud. St. Louis du Sud. Now, that's just wild to have that name of all the names on a quake that I issued a forecast for over in Mexico. If I'm looking in Mexico for a 7.2 or 7.1 to 7.2, and then a 7.2 strikes on the plate boundary just over to the east, and it strikes at a place called St. Louis, my eyebrows will raise a little bit on that, more than just hearing that it's at Haiti. It's because I'm from St. Louis. And to get a rare earthquake this past week up here in D.C., and it struck at St. Louis Catholic Church. Sorry, I'm drinking coffee. Did you hear me? A rare earthquake struck this past week here in Maryland, right outside of Washington, D.C. The diamond right here is D.C. And it struck like right here somewhere. And I zoomed in on the quake, and it's in the parking lot of a church. And we zoom in on the church, and I did a street level view to get the name of the place, because it's weird to get an earthquake on the East Coast at all. And it's below St. Louis Catholic Church. And I really went overboard because I've been in such a huge fight with the USGS for such a long time. And they've come after me personally, and they know my location and everything, and doxed me and all that good stuff. Well, Oh, no, they didn't dox me. A woman associated with them doxed me and tried to get me. Okay. Now, to get this St. Louis stuff over and over again, is everywhere in the world named St. Louis? I mean, the chance of having 3 different St. Louis type events in the same week is very odd, wouldn't you say? I'm asking for a friend. So let's get this saved as a video. I will update in just a few, do a video, do a forecast, but we're dealing with the biggest quakes in years for the whole planet. The whole East Pacific just shifted from Alaska down to the South Sandwich Islands. In the middle is Haiti here on the screen. I've got a warning now going for Chile and a warning going for Southern California. Both should be getting upper 6 to low 7. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the energy goes out over to the east. If I have to correct or cancel or anything, I will do it. Egg on my face in a moment's notice. No big deal. I will come back and cancel if I have to. I don't normally cancel my warnings. If I issue a warning, it's based upon earthquakes which already struck, usually. There's a few times where I'm issuing forecasts based upon earthquakes that I think are going to strike. Let me give you an example, just so in case you're new. 2 days ago, I issued a warning for Iran and China and Nepal to be struck by 3 to 4 different 5s. And since then, now we got a 5 out here next to a coal mine, but it's not a coal mine quake. Coal mine in Russia and Siberia. A 5.4 to 5.5 strikes at the Himalayan range in central China, and a 5.0 and 5.4 strikes over in Iran. The only thing missing now is a 5 in Nepal. All the other areas I warned here got hit by the exact expected magnitude as expected. Just to give you an example of areas where we issue warnings, and within a couple days, the expected magnitude rolls in. Now, if I get it wrong, if this didn't hit and we go all week, I come back on, try to figure out where the energy went, and usually it's obvious by then. I give it a few days beyond where I issue the warning for if I flop, and we see the same size quakes that I issued the warning for go around the area, or just to the east of the area, or we'll try to figure out why. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing something that everybody said was impossible. Discovering methods for earthquake forecasting. And it's all based upon the travel of the wave. The wave is what causes the quakes. It's not that the quake up in Alaska caused a quake down here at the South Pole. And it's not that the quake down at the South Pole and the quake up in Alaska somehow caused a quake here in Haiti. They're not sandwiching together. It's not one quake falling like a domino and hitting the other. No. It is a standing wave that's spreading out through a tank, and as the standing wave's spreading out through the tank, it's just dropping off the earthquakes along the way once it reaches a break point. I think at the highest point of the wave. That to me makes the most sense. At the highest point of the wave, we get a break. But the wave's spreading, and as it spreads, it drops off the quakes along the way, but the wave doesn't stop. It moves from point to point. It goes path of least resistance around things and through them. In this case, it's spreading out across the whole Pacific in the course of a week. It's going to go through the planet and carry on. This will go through and come back out up here. And that's now where we're going to watch this week, 7 days, for the potential, and I'm going to have to keep on top of this every day, the potential for a 9. It would be the first one since I've done my whole YouTube channel. I started my YouTube channel in 2010, and then by March of 2011, the Japan megaquake happened, and that was a 9. That was the last one. That was 2011. It's been 10 years. So I've been doing my channel for 10 years, and it looks like this is going to be the first time that I'm ever going to have to issue a 9.0 potential warning, and it's going to be for the Northwest Pacific, up by Kamchatka, Kuril Islands, over into the Aleutian Island chain. If a 9 hits this week, it will be a Pacific-wide tsunami that we're dealing with, spreading out all the way over to the United States, down to Japan, down to Papua New Guinea, down all the way, possibly all the way to Fiji and beyond. That when a Pacific-wide tsunami happens, we have to warn everybody over on the East Pacific, again, a whole planet basically. The big megaquake back in 2011 in Japan caused tsunamis to hit the west coast of the United States. There was a couple of fatalities. Now, the tsunami wave was only like 5 or 8 feet high or something, but it was big enough to come into the ports and go down little inlets along the coast and knock out docks and tip over boats. And that's what happened in the United States as a result of a quake a world away. So I'm on top of it. If I have to cancel, I will, but I'm going to issue the warning now for that, as well as the 6.0 range earthquake due down in Southern California. Let's look one more time. It's going to be from Monterey Bay down to North LA, Simi Valley, as far east as Long Valley Caldera at the California-Nevada border. Ridgecrest included in that. And it could be, again, could go maybe even bigger. It could go up to upper 6, maybe low 7, but I'm thinking upper 6. All these earthquakes are going to be, they're on the east side already. So it's already going over to the east side of the Pacific. It's going down the red line here, and it's already preferring on the east side. So if we were seeing it coming across, for instance, I would then warn other parts in California. But this is the halfway point. The halfway point is what it is. Adding in the stratospheric high blast over here out of the ocean. We're lucky we didn't get a massive tsunami on that. Just the way a blast can happen. If it shoots straight up, you might be lucky. If it blows out at the side in the water, you're dealing with yourself of a potential of a huge tsunami. That did not happen, but 56,000 foot high blast over in Japan out of the ocean is nothing to scoff your nose at. Time to save this is now. Do you have an earthquake plan? If you live in Southern California, you should. You probably hear this all the time. Everybody always harps on you about it. But did you do it? Do you have the emergency kit? And guys, come on. It's a change of clothes and a set of shoes, flashlight and batteries, sanitation. You should already have that crap from the past week, the past month, the past year, the past 2 years. You should have the sanitation taken care of. Finally, food and water. Now, the food is going to be something that you're going to be specific on. I would do the granola bars, the fruit roll-ups, the pre-packaged stuff that's watertight. If you're cooking a steak on night 1 over a fire, there's something wrong with you. Carrying around that stuff would be, first of all, hard, and secondly, you want something on the go, high energy, and easy to carry with you. Now, the water, 7 pounds a gallon, basically. That's up to you. You're going to have that stuff pre-positioned somewhere. Likely, what I'd recommend is to have some water inside in jugs and maybe outside in jugs. Or in the car or somewhere else where you can get to one or the other. If you can't get to one, you can get to the other. And then you don't have to carry it in your bug-out bag. Okay, 11:03 a.m. Just advice. Now, when an earthquake strikes, I've never been in a quake of any size, knock on wood. But you need to take shelter underneath a table or a desk. The people down in Haiti likely took shelter if they had shelter. When you get a big quake like that, there's only one thing that I think I would do. Dive underneath a desk or a table. Professionals say do not go under door frames. Now, that's a big change from what they used to say, which is they used to say go under door frames. But now they say that they never said that we should go under door frames. And that we all came up with that on our own based upon a picture from the 1800s. That's the professionals. Don't go under a door frame now after they told you to go under a door frame and then deny that they ever said that they told you to go under a door frame. Okay, whatever. How about a table or a desk? And make sure the table or desk isn't plastic and isn't glass. Plastic, I don't know, it could be strong, but is it going to be strong enough to withstand falling objects? Now, no table or desk that I know of is going to be strong enough to withstand a collapsing structure. So if you aren't confident in your structure, stone stack building, concrete, reinforced concrete, let's just say you're in a stone building. You might need to have an exit plan if the earthquake's big enough. If it's small enough, you can shelter in place, but if it's a huge quake and you don't feel like your structure is going to stand it, well, you have to move when you're not supposed to. You have to go outside when you're not supposed to. And that means you need to know where to go ahead of time. Kind of like a fire drill. You need a pre-designated area outside, away from sewers, gas lines, power lines, all the stuff that can fall and hit you. And that's just what I'm thinking of right now. I'm sure there's more. You would need to know where to go ahead of time. Finally, friends, family, loved ones, coworkers, they need to know where you're going
so that you can interface and interact with each other after the quake. So let your friends, family, loved ones, coworkers know about your safe spot, safe space. Legit though, like a legit one that you're going to go to. Okay? Now, I appreciate everybody who was here today. Again, you were here today. Very much appreciated. I was asleep up till 6 a.m. Central Time. Got up at 10 a.m. Central Time to the notification from my mother. Text message notice, a big earthquake has hit in Haiti. It looks like my little notification network really didn't get to me today, but I don't think I would have heard it even if it was dinging right next to my ear. It would have sounded just like a 1980s beat to me at that point because we had such a good time last night. Word up and much love to my viewers. We're going to be on top of this for the rest of the day. I'm going to get a forecast out in the next few hours that'll cover the 9.0 that I'm warning for up in Kamchatka, up in Russia, the 6 that I'm warning for, upper 6 in California, and the upper 6 I'm warning for in Chile. This should escape out from Haiti and go over to the east. Do you see which way the arrows point? They point over to 2 X's, one of which, north, has already been hit in between the two, 5.4. But I'm going to watch for these 2 X's to light up. We want to see that happen. We want to see the energy go over to the east, escape out, strike with swarm activity, actually. I was going to say 6.0, but we would want to see swarm activity out here at the 2 X's. 2 different sets of quakes striking at the 2 X's over the course of the next week, letting us know energy's going out across the plate. One final time. A 7 struck this morning up in Alaska. A 7.2, 7.1 struck in Haiti. Yesterday, 7.5 and an 8.1 struck down here at the South Sandwich Islands. Not counting the 7.1 to 7.2 that struck over here 2 days ago, and not counting the other 7s and 8 that struck a week and a half, almost 2 weeks ago, that started this whole mess, basically. And the deep earthquakes that really are the culprits, the main pushers for the whole planet, the deep earthquakes are carrying on. I'll be back, guys. Word up, much love, saved, and on to YouTube we go.